The Carolina Panthers walk it off in Munich. Are things finally turning around for Ejiro Evero's defense? Bryce Young's making a statement, and what a week it has been. We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here live on YouTube, as I am here in Allianz Arena in Munich, following the Carolina Panthers 20-17 overtime victory against the Giants. You can also listen wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter, at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead, click on that follow button as well, at Julian Council on Twitter. This episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Carolina Panthers 20, the New York Giants 17 in overtime. A walk-off win. Eddie Pinheiro from 36 yards away, making a habit of these walk-off wins the last couple of years. When the Panthers do win, which unfortunately last two seasons has not been as much as any of us would like, when they do it in walk-off style. Did it twice last year in walk-off style and do it today in this win at Allianz Arena in Munich, Germany. And what an experience it was all week long. We'll talk about that. So many people I got to meet finally who listen to the show, watch the show from all over the world. So appreciated every single one of those interactions. But I want to start off today by talking about the defense, something that we have not started a lot of shows talking about this Panthers defense. And when we have talked about this defense after games and throughout the week, it's not been a lot of positives. This has been one of the worst units in the NFL. When you look at total defense, scoring defense, you look at DVOA, you look at EPA, doesn't matter how you spell it. This has not been a great defensive unit, but understand this too. They've been banged up. This is the first time all season long that we saw a secondary with J.C. Horn, Dane Jackson, Mike Jackson at corner, and Jordan Fuller and Xavier Woods back there at safety. It's hard to be a good defense when you don't have your guys out on the field. And I talked to JC in the locker room after the game, and I also talked to Dane and Jordan also about this, about how they just have been so banged up. And now can they finally get to be the kind of defense they thought they would be heading into the season? I think it's now possible. And I still don't think this is going to all of a sudden turn into a top 10, top 5 unit in the NFL for the final 7 weeks of the year. But I do think they're going to be a lot better than what we've seen so far this year when you don't have those guys back in the secondary with the communication, when you did not have DJ Wonnum, who made his debut in this game, when you didn't have for a couple weeks Josie Jewell, who was tremendous in this win on Sunday. This is the kind of defensive performance Carolina can have. Now, granted, the Giants are a terrible offense. Daniel Jones cannot play, and I don't know how they continue to trot him out there up in New York. I know we talked to Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants on Thursday for the crossover episode about what the future may be like for the Charlotte native, and if the Giants are going to bench him because of that $23 million injury settlement. Good example that maybe they should. But they did have a chance to win this game, the Giants did, as they came back from 17-7 down. And quite honestly, I'm sitting up here in the press box, and open air press box, by the way, been freezing all day long. I was sitting here thinking to myself, there's no way that this Giants team that had 110 yards in the first half, that was thoroughly outgained and outplayed by the Panthers in the first half. The third time so far this season, Carolina's had a shutout in the first quarter. That also happened in Denver in that loss, and in week 3, the win against the Raiders. The Panthers were tremendous defensively in the first half. And looking at their defensive drive chart, it was punt, missed field goal, punt, interception at the half when they were up 10-0, but they were only up 10-0. And we'll talk about the offense momentarily and how things are going to move forward, potentially with Bryce Young, where if Andy Dalton goes back out there as starting quarterback after the bye week in week 12 against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But overall, you had looked at the defense, how they ended the game last week, where it was punt, turnover on downs, then starting off this game, punt, missed field goal, punt, interception. hey, look at these guys. This is what we're expecting out of an Ejiro Evero Coach T. And he had a lot of injuries last year, and still he was able to put up a relatively respectable unit when you look at total defense as they ranked fourth in the NFL. And if you look at some of the advanced analytics, wasn't the best defense in the world, but still, you understood. Didn't have J.C. Horn. Didn't have Shaq Thompson. You're missing some key guys. And this year, don't have Shaq for the rest of the year. They don't have Derek Brown for the rest of the year, but they have been able to have J.C. Horn out there throughout the season. I'm going to go ahead and knock on wood, hoping that this is actually wood, the table that I'm sitting at as I'm talking to y'all now live. But they haven't been able to completely be healthy. And maybe look at that as an excuse, but also it's a reason why maybe this unit has not played as well as many people have really become accustomed to in Carolina throughout the 30 seasons of Panther football here in Charlotte. But now maybe they can be better. At the end of the day, the Giants did end up with more first downs than the Panthers. They did outgain the Panthers, and they ran 16 more plays and still had a ton of success on the ground running the football. Like we saw last week, they gave up a ton of yards, but they made the stops that were necessary. And I looked at last week, why did the Panthers win that game? Because of the red zone. They got 2 red zone stops in those first 2 drives against New Orleans that led to field goals, and it was only 6-0. And that gave the offense an opportunity to come back and still be able to put up points on the board and have an opportunity to win that game. Today, red zone once again. The Giants were 1 for 3 in the red zone. Carolina was 3 for 3 in the red zone. Second straight week, they win that battle in red zone. They win a turnover battle. Those 3 turnovers were all massive. Jadeveon Clowney getting that deflection of Daniel Jones, who was rolling out to the right side, trying to hit his running back, and Xavier Woods coming up with that interception. You look at Josie Jewell's interception, which was outstanding, and that comes after what I thought, just from my perspective sitting up here, was an egregious missed call on whether it should have been a hip drop tackle. And that wasn't the only time in this game where Chuba Hubbard was asking for one. There was one earlier on the Panther sideline where he said, where's the hip drop? And you would think that on the Panther sideline, they would get that call, as if officials can be swayed in those situations. And it was wild to me how on that play, Chuba fumbles, replay assists can buzz down and tell them, hey, it's a fumble, it's Giants ball. But they can't buzz down and say that was a hip drop or that was a horse collar. And you think back to the Thursday night game a couple weeks ago where Sam Darnold clearly has his face mask ripped off by the Rams defender. The Rams defender is going surrender Cobra, and they don't call it. So I'm not here advocating for more replay, and I'm not here trying to blame the officiating, which there is one Malik Neighbors catch down over here on the Panther sideline that clearly hit the ground, and that's being called a reception, which is great that they can buzz down and tell them, actually, that's not a catch. It can be quick, and it could have been quick that they could have told the refs that was a horse collar or that was a hip drop tackle, and if the Panthers have the ball, it's first down, that's 15 yards. Instead, they can buzz down and say that it's a turnover, which was ridiculous. But for Josie Jewell to get that interception in that moment where Devin Singletary was juggling the pass and Josie comes up with it, I think with just one hand, that was a huge momentum shifting play for Carolina, where I was sitting there thinking, okay, Giants going to go down and score a touchdown here, and that's going to put this Panthers offense in a precarious situation. And then you go to the start of overtime. Tyron Tracy, who was pretty damn good today, had that run to open up the third quarter, that opening drive for New York to make it 10-7 and really game on. Fumbles. A'Shawn Robinson punches it out. And what do we hear all offseason long from Dave Canales and Ejiro Evero, the Panthers DC, about this defense wanting to punch out the ball, wanting to be able to get more takeaways, which they were last in the NFL last year in takeaways. And typically, you're able to get those when there's pressure on the quarterback. Clowney kind of got pressure there on that tip ball. Jewell, there wasn't pressure, just made a great play. A'Shawn made a play, and Josie jumps on it, and right there, they're set up in field goal range, and they decide to run 3 plays and kick it with Eddie. Third time in 2 seasons, he's had a walk-off win, this time coming in overtime. And I asked him after the game, like, you're making a habit of this. Did you want to kick it from 40 or did you want to wait? He just said, just have it on the right hash. That's all I needed. And they had it on the right hash. He knocked it through from 36 yards. Easy for him. One of the most accurate kickers in the history of the league. And he's talked about that's what he wants to be. And, of course, he wants to be paid as one after the season. And Carolina now has another reason to want to do that, hit a 53-yard field goal. And his range, that's been some questioning as far as him as a kicker. gets it done. Panthers walk off, and this is a healthier defense. And DJ Wonnum, I would be remiss if I don't talk about him. He set the tone in that first half of the defense. 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, had that sack that was a little bit combined of A'Shawn Robinson, but he gave the Giants left tackle trouble all day long. And this now, with him being healthy, gives the Panthers an opportunity to possibly have an edge rush. When you have him on the side, on one side, and Jadeveon Clowney on another, you have to respect both of those guys in the NFL for this defense. Like, Clowney still is not this great pass rusher. He's probably not going to all of a sudden have 8.5 sacks the rest of the way. It's certainly possible, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. He's not going to have the kind of sack performance he had last year, but he was really good, I thought, in the run game today, and that's one of the things that I felt like was going to improve with him out there at outside linebacker, opposed to Brian Burns, who did have a sack on Bryce Young earlier on in this game and was just okay. But having Wonnum, who had 8 sacks last year, 2 years prior to that, had 8 sacks in Minnesota, playing opposite of Neil Hunter, who's a fantastic player, who's now down there in Houston with the Texans, with him and with Clowney and Robinson making some plays there too, because he had a sack in this game. The Panthers got a chance. They have a chance to actually have maybe, I don't know if it's going to be respectable or it's not going to be good, but they have a threat now that, okay, you can't always just sit back there. They can actually get a little bit of pressure, and they can make some big plays like they did a couple times in this game. And good to get him back. Really a great moment for DJ Wonnum coming over here after having the blood clot, missing so much that time. And he was the first player the Panthers identified this offseason to replace Brian Burns, and hadn't gotten an opportunity until today. And he made the most out of it. Has the bye week to continue to get back in shape, get healthy, come back against Kansas City. 1-2 straight games. Defense is feeling better about themselves. They're getting healthier, and hopefully they'll stay healthier. We'll see what they're able to do. But this is the Panthers' defensive performance that I think is one of the best they've had so far this season. Obviously, the Raiders one was fantastic. I know they gave some things up late in that game, but it was garbage time at the end of the third quarter. It was all about Andy Dalton, the offense that day. This one, to me, with the 3 turnovers, the situational plays that they made, I get it. Blew the 17-7 lead. I felt like this was the best defensive performance from the Panthers defense so far this season in this 20-17 walk-off win here in Munich against the New York Giants. Offensively, could have been better. Would have liked to see more, but they won. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. And Dave Canales saying that Bryce Young is making a statement to all of us. Will that statement be enough for him to get the ball again in 2 weeks against Kansas City? And Chuba Hubbard, the man got paid, and he justified that decision on Sunday. We'll talk about the Panthers offense here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand to Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for the super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot, who are last to leave. We see you. You know what else gave me a bit of Panthers fan fuel this week? Just being here in Munich, going to Augustiner Stammhouse, the official Panthers bar throughout the week, and hanging out with all of the fans I was able to meet, like Yannick, like Moritz, Toby, Marcel, Kai, Liam. Love talking to all those guys from all over Germany, across Europe, and even some of the folks who came over from the States here in North Carolina to talk to them. It was awesome to see them all week long here in Munich. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand a Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you keep your fuel throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play. $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. With players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back here live from Allianz Arena, the home of Bayern Munich. Carolina Panthers getting a 20-7 walk-off win. And folks, this is the first back-to-back wins the Panthers have had since the 2022 season when they were able to get a win against Detroit. That awesome game where they ran all over them that day, and the coldest game in the history of Bank of America Stadium. Had the bye week and then came back and won on the road in Seattle, the first road win, I think it's since like week 3 of the previous season in 2021 when the Panthers were able to beat the Houston Texans on that Thursday night game when they started off the season 3-0. And going back to 2021, that's the last time that in actual back-to-back weeks, talking about like week 1, week to week 2, the Panthers won back-to-back games. Back in 2022, it was a win, a bye, and a win. So back-to-back wins, but not in back-to-back weeks. We have been waiting since the start of the 2021 season when there was hope about Darnold being the guy in Carolina. That's the last time that we've seen the Panthers win on consecutive weeks in the NFL. And God bless you for sticking in there and hanging in there all these years as Carolina has finally done it again. And the offensive performance, it wasn't the best. As I mentioned, the Giants end up outgaining Carolina. The Panthers were only 6 of 15 on third down, which not too bad considering their struggles they've had so far this year. But they were 3 for 3 in the red zone where it truly mattered. They were able to run the ball, 188 yards on the ground. Talk about being stubborn about running the football. It's exactly what you wanted to see today. But passing yardage-wise, it wasn't stellar. Bryce Young was 15 of 25, 126 yards, touchdown, and an 86.4 passer rating. And looking at it now, all 4 of the wins under Bryce Young the past 2 seasons in his career in Carolina have all been on game-winning drives. You look at the walk-off against Houston, the walk-off against Atlanta in the rain. You look at earlier last week, rather, they had that game-winning drive on their last possession as well. And then today, a walk-off. So 3 walk-offs in those 4 wins, and all 4 of them have been game-winning drives. That's the way to start. You know that sometimes when you need it, he can help you move the football down the field. Now, when they needed to salt the game away, they couldn't really do it. Now, there was one play, kind of going back to my notes, trying to see what it was. It was the third and 8. The 13-yard connection Xavier Legette on that corner route. That was the best throw of the day from Bryce. We saw him cut it loose on that second drive where he hit Legette over the middle for, I think it was 23 yards. It was on a dig route. Chuba had that big run, had another big run. Bryce had a big run in the game. Jalen Coker had a 24-yard reception as well. So there was a couple of chunk plays during the pass game, but overall, down to down, it wasn't the best. There was still some improvement, but you would love to improve from it when it's in a winning effort opposed to trying to improve in a losing effort, which has unfortunately been kind of how things have played out the last couple of seasons with Bryce there at quarterback. So overall, he was fine. Didn't put the ball into harm's way. That is great because last week didn't do it either. There was that one interception that was more on Legette than it was obviously on Bryce. He had some great throws I saw in that game. David Moore, and even he had hit David Moore for a touchdown, and he used his legs again. Like I'm seeing more of the Alabama Bryce the last 2 weeks than we have ever seen in his tenure here in Carolina. And this is the first time I think in his career he's been able to stack up back-to-back positive performances. The numbers don't bear it out last week, but he played well. The numbers don't really bear it out this week. I think overall, made some good throws, saw some of those overthrows as well. There's one at Jalen Coker where he had him open on what looked kind of like a wheel route. Good concept there by Dave Canales. You want to see more. But Dave said that he was proud of Bryce for taking the next step, and that Bryce is certainly making a statement to all of us, but still doesn't know who's going to be quarterback moving forward, and ran into Andy Dalton there in the locker room as he was heading out and was talking to him a little bit. Doesn't have that wrap on his thumb anymore. He says he's okay, and he was a full participant last week. He was a full participant this week and didn't get the starts, and I think rightfully so. That even against Denver where things weren't great, but you did see at the end in garbage time, all right, you can work with that. I would rather see Bryce out there. There's 7 more games for Bryce Young to try and show why he should be back in Carolina as starting quarterback. And from my understanding, David Tepper, the Panthers owner, has been far more hands-off this season. Look at the draft class and the success they've had so far, the one that Dan Morgan put together back in the spring. And that kind of tells you that, oh, yeah, you know what? Maybe David Tepper doesn't have his hands on this as much as he had in the past, which has led to a lot of the issues and, quite frankly, the losses since he took over the team. And that's a positive. So he's not the one out there dictating this decision. This was Dave Canales' decision. And I don't want to ever give David Tepper any credit, but I do give him credit that he allowed his coach to have the autonomy to do it. I felt like then, and I still feel like now, it was too soon. But it's hard to argue based off of how he's played since he's returned that it was beneficial for him and for the team. And this team has faith now in Bryce Young and in this quarterback more than they had at the beginning of the season and probably even last season, even when there were different players here in Carolina. So we'll see what they do. They got the bye week. It's not really relevant right now. Come back that Monday. Maybe one day, the Panthers are going to get back, I think, around 3 a.m. On Monday morning, and Dave Canales will speak to the media, and we'll see what he says then. But I think really it's going to be next Monday where he would possibly let us know. Maybe he does the gamesmanship thing again, doesn't wait until Wednesday or waits until Wednesday rather of that midweek heading into the Chiefs game. And I still say, does it really matter? Like, it's not like we're seeing a ton of great passing performances from Andy Dalton and Bryce Young to where the defense has to really go out there and prepare for him. Now, Bryce, more of an athletic player, was able to have the scrambles in this game. Like, that's an element that a defense has to account for, obviously, more so than Andy Dalton, who, back in his day when he was coming out of TCU, he was a dual threat kind of guy. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not an athlete anymore. But at 37, a little bit different than with Bryce, who, 23, I think, at this point in time, early on his career. So they got to stick with him. It makes the most sense. I don't really love the whole, we'll figure it out. I wanted to ask him at some point, just for the sake of the locker room, and maybe he's giving them, I'm sure he's probably giving them a different message, but talking to Andy Dalton briefly, because he didn't know that Dave said that he's not sure. He just kind of shrugged. So I don't know. Maybe he's annoyed by the situation. Maybe he's not. He's going to be a team guy. He's going to do whatever he's told as far as a coaching decision. But for Dave to be all about Andy, and then that car accident happens and he's gone back to Bryce, and we didn't see a lot of confidence in Bryce as far as the play calling went in that game against Denver. Didn't really see it with the third down play calling last week. And I didn't think the play calling that today on third down, it was better, but there were still some times where you saw throws short of the sticks. And again, we don't know what the play call is. We don't know what the route concepts are supposed to be and whether everybody executed it to the best of their abilities and correctly. We don't know that. But I do know, at least in my opinion, that Bryce Young should be the quarterback in 2 weeks, and the Panthers welcome the Chiefs at Bank of America Stadium. And I really hope that Panther fans show up like they showed out today. This felt like the first home game the Panthers have had so far this year, as there were far louder cheers for Carolina. Yes, it was a Carolina Panthers home game technically here in Munich, but still, it was good to see the amount of fans out here supporting this team. And got to give a shout out to Chuba Hubbard. Guy was outstanding today. Fresh off of a 4-year, $33.2 million contract with max value of $37.2 million. 15 of that is fully guaranteed. So really a 2-year, $15 million deal. I expect he's going to get the majority of that next year. And then there could be a potential way they could move on from. I don't think they're going to do that. The way that he played today, we'll have to see what Jonathan Brooks is able to do once he's able to make that debut, as I thought he was going to play. Did not happen. It kind of would have been nice considering Miles Sanders went down in this game. And I saw Miles walking out in the boot. Asked him how he's doing, said he's okay. So we'll see how long-term that is, if it is anything at all. The good thing is got the bye week. That gives him a chance to rest. We'll find out, I'm sure, more on Monday as we'll get some x-rays, and they'll decide if there needs to be an injured reserve designation or if he's going to be somebody who they can get back in week 12 against the Chiefs. But either way, whenever that does happen, it should be Brooks getting Miles Sanders carries. It should be Chuba Hubbard getting 27 carries for 151 yards, career high, 5.6 yards per attempt as well. That touchdown. Guy gets paid, and he goes out there, and he has the best game of his career as a running back for the Carolina Panthers. Like, that's what you want to see. You see some guys get paid, and they stop working. I was out here early. The first guy out on the field was Chuba Hubbard, working on his hands, getting loose, having that pregame routine. That's one of the hardest working, if not the hardest working guy in that locker room. And it paid off for him again today, as he has a career high 151 yards, rushing on 27 attempts, 5.6 yards per attempt, and a touchdown in the Carolina Panthers 20-17 walk-off win in overtime here in Munich against the New York Giants. And what a week it has been in Munich. I want to just quickly reflect on this and kind of look ahead, as Carolina's won back-to-back games. They got a bye week. Kansas City's coming to town in 2 weeks. They're going to shock the world. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoroughly curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks, mouthwatering desserts, and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. That's OMAHA steaks.com, and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchases may apply. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back here live on YouTube, 127, y'all. Checking it out as it is, 2:25 Eastern time? No. Yeah, 2:25 Eastern time. Get subtract. There's 8:25 over here in Munich as the Panthers get the 20-17 overtime win. It looks like they're kind of clearing some things out behind me as I've been sitting here in press row, this open air press box, which it was really cool to be amongst the fans. I know I was sitting next to Joe Person and Mike Kay and Chris Jenkins, and like someone tried to steal Mike K's laptop. Someone tried to hand Joe a beer, and he had to sit right at the end of the row where fans are talking to him. And it was cool. I didn't necessarily love all the vape smoke that I had to inhale today secondhand, but I did really enjoy sitting here, hearing them sing Country Roads, Sweet Caroline, just all of the sing-along moments that happen. What an atmosphere. And I know the NFL wants to continue to expand and have more of these international games. It's kind of hard for me to argue against that just from the overall experience of covering it. I'm sure experience for the players and the fans as well. Maybe logistically may be difficult, but today was awesome. It was an awesome day to be someone who gets to cover the Panthers, cover the NFL as a job. I get paid to do this. It's insane. It's dream come true. And it's been so fun this week to be here, getting a chance to go over to Salzburg, check out that city, all things did in Munich, going over to Augustiner Stammhouse, which was the official Panthers bar throughout the week. I was there for like 5 hours on Saturday, and I had told anybody who was in town, please come say hello to me, because I would love to meet each and every one of you who have supported the show and have supported me since I started doing it back on March 29th of 2021. And there's been a lot of ups, far more downs since that point in time, but it was great. Like Yannick, Moritz, Toby, getting to meet those guys, Kai, because Toby runs the German Riot here in Germany. Moritz, he and Kai do a podcast for, I think, Footballer Eye. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sure they can let me know in my DMs. They can text me and let me know if I got it right. But talking to those guys, Marcel as well, getting to meet him and drink with him yesterday. Liam from South London, who I was walking just to, I think, get in line to get a beer, and I'm walking towards him. He stops me. He's got a Stein in his hand. So God bless you, Liam, for giving me that beer. Matthew, I met from Manchester. He might be a Man U fan, but it's okay. We can get to we can let it go for now, and at least until we play again. But it's so cool to hang out with him. Chuck, who came all the way from North Carolina, I think he said he was an Army vet, so he actually met his wife here in Germany. So I bet for them to be back in the place where I guess they first fell in love is such a cool experience for both of them. Talking to Richard, who is from Elkin. If you ever hear about the Mountains and Sea Trail in North Carolina, Elkin does it big. So if you ever want to do it, it takes like 3 months to do. Go up there, say hello to Richard and all the Panther fans there. Nick from Wilkesboro, got to hang out with him, as he actually had gone to the fan fest that they had in a different part. I think it was like Wittelsbacher Platz, if I got that correct. He came all the way back, dragged his family back to the bar to say hello. We drank for a little bit, also bought me a Stein. I got to a point where I was like, guys, please stop doing this. You're going to kill me. I can't keep drinking all these beers, which were all delicious. And I think I'm going to have to go on a cleanse and never drink again, at least for the rest of the year, because I know I'll drink again. But man, what an experience. Roger as well, who lives here in Munich. I saw him again walking up after the game. So he had some great seats, clearly. So cool to see him. Larry as well, as I ran into him, I think at my hotel, who's from Dortmund, high school there in Spartanburg, and apparently they lived in Qatar. I think that's what I caught. Didn't go back to make sure to clarify that, but all the people that I met, I wanted to give them a shout out as far as the ones that I got everybody's name, at least in that situation. But it was so cool to meet all these fans. And I look at the charts, I can see obviously in the US, ton of listeners, Canada, but the UK, Germany, those have been the two other countries with the most people that have supported the show, whether it's watching it here on YouTube or listening to it wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Just want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me this opportunity, because quite honestly, if you didn't watch, you didn't listen. And thanks to all of our sponsors who help. But if you guys didn't tune in from across the world, I can't come over to Germany and do this. So it's really cool. I hated in 2019 when I was working at WFNZ producing for Kyle Bailey, how I couldn't come over and cover the game, and just how great of an experience that was as they beat down on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jameis had to have been playing blind that day, as I think there was like 6 Bucs turnovers. But what a party that was. And then today, it got pretty hairy at the end. It's once again a party and a day where Panther fans can feel good heading into a bye week with the Chiefs on the horizon. And I don't know about y'all, man. They need to play in Europe every year. This team's 2-0. I get the Jags are basically the London Jags. They get to stay there for 2 weeks every year. Have the Panthers go to Brazil next year. Have them play in London. I don't care. They don't need to be a home team. Or rather, the Panthers not lose a home game. But let them play internationally, because as far as I'm concerned, it can't be stopped. Bucs were a terrible team that year. The Giants are a terrible team this year. Doesn't matter. The Panthers got those dubs, and let them go overseas every year. Play a game in Australia, play whatever, wherever. I would love to go again and do what I did. And I hope to come. I'm sure one day I'll be back here in Munich, whether it's covering the Panthers, whether it's going to Berlin, where it feels like that's where it's going to be. Roger Goodell was saying the rumors there might be true. So all the folks who live in Berlin or also here in Germany, get excited, get ready for that. And man, what a week. What a week it is. I'm exhausted. I have been exhausted since I woke up this morning, and do not know how right now at 8:31 p.m. here in Munich, I am even able to sit here and talk to you. I'm shivering. It's so cold, but it's just awesome. Just so awesome. I'm blessed, and I appreciate every one of y'all. And let's think about it. Bryce Young's building some momentum. The defense is getting healthier. Casey is really damn good. Best run defense in the league. That's not going to be a game that anybody is going to think Carolina has a chance in. Do they shock the world? We'll see. And someone asked me, are Farmers Market Sundays now called off? Well, they're 3-7. And if they win the next 7 games, they're going to be a playoff team. So in the NFC, it's still wide open. I still don't think that's going to happen. It's still, for me, go out there, go 3-4 the rest of the way, triple your win total. Find out that Bryce is the guy. If he's not, that sucks. But then know what your plan is in the offseason. My hope is that he, JT Sanders, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, Jonathan Brooks, when he comes back, that those guys can build that chemistry. The defense can stay healthy, and they can have some guys that they can bring back next year. And if it's still Jero Vero, which he's still a great defensive coordinator, and you saw when they're healthier, he's got a chance. Now, excuse, reason, whatever you want to call it, they were much better today. So we'll see what this team can do. And Dave Canales talked about multiple times, he knew that it was going to take a time for them to find us, as Eve said. It was going to take us time to find us. Well, maybe they're finally finding who they are and finding us after getting this win 2017 in Munich. The first time since the 2021 season they have won in back-to-back weeks. The first time the Panthers have had back-to-back wins since 2022, and a feel-good week here in Munich, and a team now headed back home with the bye week with a chance to possibly build on something against some pretty good teams that they got to play in the final 7 weeks of the season. So there is that. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays I answer your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is at me or DM me to get those questions into me for Wednesday's show. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always, and forever keep pounding. And I'll talk to you all on Tuesday, where I will be very weary from my 10-hour flight back from Munich.